Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. I'm going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days first of all. We'll have a look at the weather going further into March with CFS V2. I think the, for the next week or so is really going to be turning milder for this week, particularly later in the week. Starting off quite cold now, but it is going to get milder towards the weekend. A little bit of a burst of spring over the weekend seems probable. As we go through to next week, though, I think we may well find colder weather coming back again. So it looks like it's going to be one of those springs, really, where we are delaying the arrival of sustained spring weather. We're going to keep getting throwbacks to colder, wintry conditions, and those another one of those throwbacks seems likely. Can't guarantee it, but seems likely for next week. So I'll show you the detail in a second. Before I get on with that, just to mention the ads that Gazweb is. There's a video ads on most pages. You say open up the content. When you watch them, they'll close back up again, and that is helping to pay for the website. So just starting off with 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts for the next week to 10 days, and this is going to take us to around the 17th of March, so just in the second half of the month. Starting off with the ECMWF first of all, 500 millibars, 8,000 feet is an area in the absolute high pressure, low pressure, being around by the jet stream. Red extrapolates to high pressure, blue to low pressure. British Isles is just here, and what we're seeing for the middle part of the month is that we've got ridging developing up to the north of the country. A trough of low pressure then is into the east, across central east parts of Europe and in the Atlantic. So the jet stream is going rather like that, and the upshot is that we're probably bringing in some pretty cold air from the northeast and possibly even from the east as well as we go into the middle part of March. That could be really quite a cold, even dare I say a little bit wintry type scenario. The GFS is very, very similar. The GFS, of course, on the bottom of these charts, and it's very similar. There's subtle differences, but the general idea is that we've got the core of the ridging sitting to the north of the country. The flow is going rather like that again, and it means that once again we're pulling the air in from the east or even the northeast, and it could be pretty cold, to be honest, that certainly with risk of night frost through into the second half of the month. Possibly even wintry conditions as well. We'll have to look at the exact details, whether there's any troughs embedded within the flow. But it certainly is going back to colder conditions if these charts are right through the second part of the month. Now, we've got some very wet weather coming up this week, so I just want to deal with that very quickly. We've got a trough of low pressure moving in off the Atlantic Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. It's just there, 6 o'clock in the evening on Tuesday, and it really does develop overnight. So this is how it looks at 6 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. A very deep area of low pressure sitting somewhere around the English Channel. That's likely to bring a lot of heavy rain, possibly gale force winds up the channel, and on the northern side of this it could bring a little bit of snow for the high ground of, say, the Midlands, Wales, northern parts of England as well. This is the rainfall forecast, 6 o'clock in the morning. Very, very wet. I think we could see anything up to 25, 50 millimetres of rain across some parts of the south. That's around a couple of inches. Probably going to be our biggest rainfall in the south that we have for quite a long time. As I say, on the northern edge of this, the area is quite cold, so it could produce a little bit of snow over high ground. It mainly is a rain event that we're looking at here, less of a wintry event, but there could be a little bit of wintriness with this as it clears away. And it's going to take quite a while to clear away as well, so even up to midday on Wednesday, it's still very wet across much of East Anglia, the East Midlands, South Eastern England. A lot of heavy rain likely on Wednesday, so it's a bit of a write-off, I'm afraid, on Wednesday. We can see on the GFS temperature precipitation ensembles that big rainfall spike that's coming up on Wednesday. So this is it just here. Tuesday night into Wednesday, a lot of very wet weather coming up. After that, though, quite a lot of dry weather going into the second half of the month. So you get that big rainfall around middle of the week, and then you're going to mainly dry conditions through the rest of the week into weekend, and probably even into the start of next week as well. A lot of dry weather showing up there. In terms of the temperatures, well, the red line here is the 30-year temperature average, so we're cooler than average, of course, at the moment, colder than average. Generally staying a bit cool through the rest of this week up to about Friday, and then the temperatures really do lift off. Look at that, we go through really quite a mild phase over weekend and into next week. I think we'll have a burst of spring. But you see, as we get into the second half of the month, this is 17th of March just here, the trend is generally downwards And this is indicative of the idea that as we get to middle part of the month, then in the second half of the month, we're likely to see the high pressure going to the north and pulling in colder air from the north and from the east. And how this happens we can see with the GFS. So this is for Friday, as these mild southwesterly winds are starting to push up around this area of high pressure that's centred across Iberia. Through the weekend, that high pressure dominates the weather, sitting almost over the top of the country. So I think you'll have a really nice spell of weather over the weekend. It will be cold at night because of the position of this high pressure. It's centrally located over the country. So expect cold nights with the risk of frost. But by day, I think we'll have plenty of sunshine, in fact increasing amounts of sunshine at the end of the week and into the weekend. And that will lift temperatures up to around, well, at least 13 or 14 degrees, some places possibly go to 15 or 16. So really spring-like and mild by day, a little bit cold by night for the weekend. That high pressure stays with us into the start of next week. This is Monday the 14th, a week away. But as we go beyond that, the high pressure pushes further north. So by Tuesday, the 15th of March, it's going up towards Scandinavia. It's starting to pull the winds into the east. Look at that. Big cold pull sitting there over northeastern parts of Europe. And then those easy winds start to bring that cold air towards us as we go through the middle part of next week. This is Wednesday the 16th. And by the time we go through to Thursday the 17th, which is day 10, that high pressure is actually showing signs of retrogression. It's actually beginning to move towards Greenland and Iceland. That keeps us cold, but it changes the orientation of the flow from easterlies to northerlies. So quite a cold spell coming up there next week if that comes off. This is how the upper air temperatures are looking. Friday, for example, we're generally bathed in quite mild air, and that stays with us into the weekend. It'll be very pleasant spring-like weekend coming up. It's a little bit chilly at night, just about lasting to start of next week. But as we go through to Tuesday, look at this cold pool beginning to gather across Scandinavia and central parts of Europe. We move through into Wednesday, and all of a sudden we're seeing that cold pool pushing across the country. We've got the -10 isotherm there moving through England and Wales. That is really very cold air, particularly for March. It's probably cold enough as it runs over North Sea to produce snow showers, and they could come inland, of course, on those easterly winds. And then we get through into day 10, Thursday the 17th, still looking very cold, particularly with the cold upper air temperatures focused on England and Wales. So we would see significant night frost next week, low daytime temperatures, and no doubt a risk of some snow, particularly in the east. Temperatures look like this, so spring-like on surface temperatures, I should say, those are the upper air temperatures. So a spring-like 14, 15 degrees quite widely across England and Wales on Friday. That takes us into Saturday as well. Sunday looking really nice also, as does Monday. Temperatures up to 16 degrees in the south on Monday, a week away. That's 61 Fahrenheit. But then it all goes rather wrong, and by Tuesday we're just down into single digits, particularly in the east. By Wednesday, look at this, we're just at 4 degrees across much of England and Wales with a biting easterly wind, making it feel really very cold indeed. So a big shock to the system that would be if those easterlies do come off next week after that burst of spring over the weekend for the start of next week. If those easterlies do come off and brings in the -10 isotherm, that really will be a shock to the system. The ECWF is very similar with this as well, so there's good agreement. Here's the mild push of southwesterly winds on Friday. We go through into weekend and we keep it very mild. A little bit more changeable in the north. High pressure's not quite as far north here as the GFS wants it, so it's a little bit more unsettled in the north, but it's still very mild generally, particularly down in the south, temperatures into mid-teens Celsius. That stays with us into the start of next week, but then again, through Tuesday, the same idea, that high pressure starts to ridge up towards Scandinavia. By Wednesday, 16th of March, it's turning winds into the east with colder air, time to move in off the continent on those east winds. And those east winds then stay with us into day 10, Thursday the 17th of March. Upper air temperatures look like this. We start off with a lot of mild air over the weekend and into start of next week. But by the time you get through to the middle of next week, much colder air is coming in from the east, albeit not quite to the same depth that the GFS has it. And I say, these little throwbacks to cold weather could be a feature of this March. So just have a quick look at the CFSV2 with 500 millibar height anomalies for the coming months. So broke down to week periods. The first week period was 7th through to 13th of March. The week that we're in, very similar conditions to what we're just looking at with the charts, really. Trough of low pressure cut off across central and some parts of Europe, that ridging up to the east and out to the west. So it means the flow goes something like that. It places us on the cold side of the jet stream through the coming week, albeit it will turn milder as the week progresses. Week 2 looks like this. It's the 14th through to 20th of March. There's a high pressure centrally located across the country. So this is indicative of that warm-up that's coming up over the weekend inside of next week. It will be a milder phase with the ridge centred over the top of the country. Little burst of spring. However, week 3, the 21st through to 27th of March, this one looks pretty cold and unsettled. We've got a deep trough in across Scandinavia. The ridging has gone a long way out into the Atlantic. So the winds here are pulling down from the north, and it will be cold and fairly wintry in the north and the east as well. And that stays with us into the final week. This is 28th March, going into the start of April, the 3rd of April. And the trough again is centred over the country and going to the east. The jet stream is on a southerly track here, so on the cold side of the jet. Under a trough of low pressure, it remains cold, and lots of northern blocking over the top of the pole as well. So the prospects really for March and maybe even going into April look really quite chilly. We will get this little burst of spring coming up over the weekend, and just hanging on to next week. After that, though, watch out, because if those winds do go into the east, they could bring in some notably cold air later next week. We will have to keep an eye on it and see what's happening there. After that, it looks like we're going to keep things generally quite chilly, really, going through March, possibly even to the start of April. This is often a feature of these El Nino springs. Springs that follow an El Nino winter tend to have cold conditions at times through March and indeed April as well. So I'm not overly surprised that we're seeing this, but could be fairly significantly cool actually over the coming few weeks. I am beginning to think that March may actually come out with a colder than average temperature. That will be the first month since September to do that. So obviously we'll keep you posted on all of this, but enjoy the little burst of spring that's coming up at weekend if that's what you want. Right, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.